where we could be alone between city lights. We don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
What's up, guys? I'm Joshua Bardwell. You're going to learn something today? Oh, yes, you are. Boom! How are you doing this afternoon? Time for the questions and the answers with me, your host, Joshua Bardwell. Andrew Fitch, top of the morning to you, laddie. Top of the morning to you. And before anyone out there who isn't up on the YouTubes thinks I'm just doing an offensive Irish stereotype, that is actually an impression of Jacksepticeye, the famous YouTuber, who opens his streams with top of the morning to you, laddie. See, so I'm not being racist against the Irish, I'm being racist against Jacksepticeye. Let's start the stream over. That's not a good opening. This is bad. Joe, let's keep political stuff out of the live stream, okay? I appreciate your passion for that topic, but we're gonna stick to talking about, we're gonna make this a place where we can talk about quadcopters and not. Nope. Joe, that's 2. You keep it up. I know you got a little bit of lag, Joe. You're going in timeout. Sorry, man. I understand that there are certain topics out there that people feel very, very passionate about. This is just not the place to talk about them. Okay, so we started with a offensive Irish impression. We started with a discussion about me being racist, and then some political stuff. So, yeah, good stream, everybody. Oh, you have to apologize. I have to apologize. Weird Beard FPV. Am I opening Patreon chat? I'm not sure what that means, dude. Patreon chat, live stream chat is open. Yeah. Boozy FPV. Normally I start the stream by talking about some news of the day, and there is some very, very big news today. But Boozy FPV, I'm going to take your question because Boozy says, how does it feel working for Roto Riot for free, Joshua, while Chad reeks the benefit? Well, first of all, Chad is reaping the benefit, R-E-A-P. He's not wreaking the benefit, although given that you don't like Chad, the wreaking the benefit actually is kind of evocative. I kind of like that. This a picture of somebody like just sitting in the corner of stinking. But how does it feel working for Roto Riot for free? It feels great because it's my decision. I decide what I do with myself. I make agreements with people. I make deals that I feel are the best deal for me. And then I don't whine and complain as long as everybody holds up their end of the deal, which everyone has. In case you don't know, I am a Roto Riot cast member, but I am not a Roto Riot employee. I voluntarily decline to be paid by Roto Riot because I am trying. I talked about this at the end of one of my vlogs. I always try to, like, for those of you who are like really sticking around at the end of a vlog, I sometimes put a little bit of bonus in for the true fans. And what I said was that as a product reviewer, it's a little bit tenuous. It's risky for me to be sort of hanging out with a store. With Roto Riot runs a store. And it's one thing when I have an affiliate agreement. I have affiliate relationships with GetFPV, Race Day Quads, Newbie Drone, Amazon, Banggood. And my thinking there is that as long as I spread it all around, nobody owns me, right? That's my logic. But here I am, I'm hanging out with Roto Riot guys. I dare say I'm friends with some of them, good friends, some of them. Now you guys are like, well, which ones aren't you good friends with? I just didn't want to be presumptuous. Some of them I'm better friends than others just because we've spent more time together. And anyway, that's not the point. The point is that I have fun doing Roto Riot episodes. I love, if somebody said we're going to do a drone adventure where you get to go to Seattle and you get to fly an Alta 6 or you get to do all the epic things we do, it would be like, if somebody was to charge you money for that trip, some people would be like, hell yeah, it's a great opportunity. Well, I get to do it for free. And to me, that's more than worth it. So how does it feel working for free for Roto Riot? It feels great. I love it. It feels great because it was my decision. Here's the thing. The people who are mad at Chad Kapper and Roto Riot they feel like they made a deal and then they didn't get the deal that they agreed to. I don't have any opinion about that, okay? I wasn't there. I have no comment about that because I wasn't there. Ask me what the Prime Minister of Germany had for lunch yesterday. I don't know. And I don't know what went on between Steel and Final Glide and Kapper. I wasn't there. All I can say is that in all the time that I have dealt with Roto Riot and Chad Kapper and Drew Camden, not once has anyone failed to do what they said they would do. Not once have they done something that they said they wouldn't do. So it feels great. It feels great. Nobody's taking advantage of me. I'm getting exactly what I asked for. I feel like I'm getting more than yeah. So there you go. Now that Boozy, there you go. You didn't think I would answer that question, but I did. Am I sponsored by DJI? Good question, L. Bart Knox. We're going right into the Q&A. I am not sponsored by DJI. You don't see any sponsored by DJI in front of my episodes. Nothing like that. DJI originally did not send me any gear for review. And probably, I think it's because they thought I would be too hard on it. Turns out I love it, so whoops. They did eventually. I bought my own DJI gear, and then after I bought it, when the Roto Riot sponsorship went through, as a Roto Riot pilot, DJI sent me a goggles, a controller, and an air unit. To this day, that is all I've gotten from them. So, yeah. But I am not sponsored by DJI. DJI is not buying episodes. They're not paying for my coverage, and none of that. Okay, so when will I fly with Mr. Steele, says Martin Leicher. Martin Leicher is referring to a thing I was going to do with Steele. There's a thing I do where I review a pilot's signature frame by trying to do basically game of quad with them. And since they're probably a better pilot than me, they do a trick and then I crash their quad trying to emulate the trick. But then hopefully I eventually get it. I did it with Stingy and I did it with TAC FPV, and I'm looking forward to making it a regular series. I had some plans to do it with Steel, but after the whole what Roto Riot could have been live stream, I think both Steel and I didn't feel good about it. Not necessarily. I can only speak for myself, not because there's any ill will. I was still ready to go through with it because I feel like my role as a reviewer is independent. But like the purpose of those videos is to basically try to break the frame and fail, right? So he does an awesome trick. Then I'm like, okay, I'm going to do your awesome trick. And then I'm going to fail 10 times before I finally half-assed get it. And that shows off how durable the frame is. Well, if I were to do that, if there's this kind of undertone of distrust and then I break a frame, then it's just not going to look good for anybody. So I feel like it just wasn't a good environment for it. So maybe at some point in the future. Okay, so with those questions out of the way, I'll get back to the questions. But I want to do news. And the biggest news that has to be covered is this. The X Vista VTX for what is this? This picture got leaked from a FAI trade show or something. Holy crap. First of all, this is not just a decased air unit. Oh no. This is a X DJI compatible VTX. Now, I'm sure that there are a lot of questions in your minds right now, and I can tell you a few things that I have heard about this. So first of all, why is X making a DJI VTX? DJI licensed the tech to X, but let X do the hardware design. Now, this is mind-blowing because I really did not see this coming. That DJI would let anyone else touch their tech. When has DJI ever done this before? Crystal Sky. If you Crystal Sky is a separate company from DJI, and they make these monitors that can pick up the DJI feed. So maybe Crystal Sky is an example, but I just did not see this coming. But if this is true, then does this mean that DJI is open to licensing their tech to other VTX makers like X, like Runcam, like Foxeer, like AKK? Who knows? Oh, what an enormous... Like, I don't even know what... I'm just in upside down land right now. So the fact that they even did it to X is a big freaking deal. Here's the other thing. Look at this. Look how big this thing is compared to the air unit. Look how big this thing is compared to Bifrost. I think Bifrost is in trouble. Like, what does Bifrost have over DJI? Okay, so number one, it's not made by DJI, and some people feel like that. Nope. Some people are just not going to touch DJI for political reasons, for economic reasons, for social, cultural reasons. That's fine. I'm not going to try and... Let's just set that aside, right? There's no point in, like, trying to bang our heads together about that. That's not what I'm about. But on a technical aspect, this thing looks smaller and lighter than the Bifrost. Don't know that for a fact. It's just looking at the picture. Holy Christ. Holy Christ. Boost of FPV thinks DJI has probably asked to work with TBS as well, but Trappy will have to turn him down because the Roto Riot partnership game over when that happens. Avolet FPV says Bifrost has lower latency at the moment. You might be right about that. It has consistent latency. There are some things about the Bifrost tech that are preferable, like the analog style breakup and the lower latency, but I just feel like DJI is kicking ass. Like, you say, okay, the DJI system is pretty good, but the analog input, the AV input has all these latency problems. Fixed it. Yeah, but it doesn't record the DVR. Fixed it. Like okay, but the air unit is so big. Can't we just have a smaller, lighter air unit with no DVR in it? That fixed it. It's like, okay, DJI. Shit. Don't know. Chamer in the Discord wants to know, will this open up digital modules that go in Fat Sharks? I mean, Chamer, I would be shocked to see DJI make a module compatible with someone else's goggles, but I am shocked to see CADX making a DJI VTX 2, so I just don't even know what to say at this point. Is it a little cheaper? Do we know how many milliwatt the CADX puts out yet? I do know the answer to that, but I'm not sure if the person who told me was supposed to tell me, so I'm not going to say. I'll say this. I mean, you can look at that and you can see it isn't as big and heavy as the air unit. It doesn't have the same amount of heat sink and stuff, so you could probably guess that it's not going to be 1200 milliwatts. But I can't say more than that. Also, you can see that it only has one antenna, so it's not doing any kind of diversity MIMO stuff. So it stands to reason that it has to have shorter range. If it had the same output power but only one antenna, it has to have shorter range. That's just how these things work. So I think we can expect that the range will be shorter. But, you know, people have been saying, what about racers? Can't I have a VTX that's small and light? And I don't care if it has shorter range. I just need it to be small and light. Well, this looks like that. This is astounding. It's astounding. So, I have reached out to CADX. Newbie Drone posted something about a live stream. I've reached out to everyone I know who has touched this and said, what do I have to do to get one? And so as soon as it's available, I hope to, yeah, I know DJ Dubs, they advertise the same 4-kilometer distance. I just don't buy it. I just don't see how that could be possible. I don't know how that could be possible. If you could get a certain distance with one antenna, you have to go further with two antennas. That's just how it works. Okay. So that's the CADX Vista. Now, on to slightly less exciting news. People have been asking about my 3D printer. I want to show you guys this. Which one? Yeah, this. Well, that's not the best picture, is it? I guess it'll do. Check that out. That, oh, let's zoom in really, really far. Oh, no, it's too far. That, well, it's a little out of focus, but I think you can see. That is printed on an Ender 3, thanks to my patron, Ghost Branch FPV. His name is Andre Huntsler. And that's pretty damn good for an Ender 3 with a boat. That's TPU, in case it's not obvious. For a Bowden extruder, there is, in case you don't know what you're looking for there's no stringing. Why do I zoom in? There we go. There's no stringing between those at all. That's really clean. And he has, let me find his settings. He wanted me to share them with you guys. If you're out there and you have an Ender 3, yeah, here we go. Here are his settings for clean TPU. You could just screenshot this real quick. And this, to me, people are asking, well, you've got the Sovol SV01, and on paper, the Sovol SV01 beats the Ender in so many ways. But one of the advantages of an Ender 3 is that everybody in the freaking world owns an Ender 3. And as a result, when you want to print on an Ender 3, so many people can just be like, okay, here, just take my settings. Yeah. So yeah, working on my review of the Ender 3 versus the Sovol. That's coming soon. One more thing. I don't know if you guys were on my Instagram this morning, but this happened. As dumb as it looks, but it's still dumb. How to get a quad out of a tree? This is one way. And that's not an OSHA approved way to mount a ladder, but I mean, if you think about it, where's it going to go? Ha ha! So that happened this morning. I learned that trick from Bob Davis. He goes by Peckerwood FPV. He's a Lumineer Get FPV sponsored pilot, and he runs a painting company. And so he has a lot of experience with ladders. And the first time I saw him get a quad out of a tree using a ladder like that, I was like, well, that's terribly risky. But then I looked at it and I was like, well, where's the ladder going to go? It's basically just hugged by branches on all sides. So I got my quad down. Yes, Black Kitty, TPU is tricky. Retraction's a must. That was with 6 millimeters of retraction. Direct drive extruder is typically better than a Bowden extruder. Well, that's true. But people are always saying, can you do it on an ender? And I think that's pretty clean for an ender. Okay. All right. We're 15 minutes into the stream now. I think we've had a lot of great content. I feel like that's it. We should just wrap up. But no, we're going to keep going. In case you're new here. Yeah, Drone Racer, you're right. The feet could slip back. I don't know if you could see, but that ladder has the kind of feet that tip up and dig in. Plus, my thinking is if the ladder does start to slip, you just grab all the branches and then you're hanging from a branch. It'll probably be okay. Okay, guys. Up here, this here is the YouTube chat. We call it the Pleb Chat. All the plebs here in the chat. We say that with love. 50 millimeters. Josh H., if you've got a profile for printing TPU at 50 millimeters per second, send it to me. Email it to me, Josh H. Email me your settings and I'll try it. I find that hard to believe on an unmodified Ender 3. Josh is going to be like, oh, it's not unmodified. I'll give it a try. You guys ask questions. I answer the questions. That's what we do. Now, the questions go by so fast and furious that I could not even hope to answer them all. So, if you want to make sure your question gets noticed, hit the $sign down here. Leave a super chat like Ron Grant. Thank you for $2, Ron Grant. I will get to your question in just a second. And the other thing you can do is here. This is my live stream chat here on my Discord server. Hello, Simon Saucy, Luke Meyer, Ghost Branch FPV, Sander Puh. These are my patrons, and they get to chat with me on the Discord server during the live stream. So, did I go out and get firewood? No, Ken, I did not. Although it's quite warm at the moment, I could get some firewood right now. But, yeah. Let's see here. What slicer am I using? Cura. I'm using Cura. When people hear that I'm using Cura, some of them go, oh, Cura's terrible. You should use... And then they name the slicer that works for them. And it seems like no matter what slicer I say I'm using, some people say, oh, that one's terrible. The bottom line is I tried a Prusa slicer, and there was some setting in it, and I couldn't even get the first layer to adhere. I couldn't figure out what set. As far as I could tell, the settings were all the same, but I could not figure out how it just wouldn't adhere. So then I just went back to Cura and was like, okay. So Mobulus 6 review is coming. I miss Sebastian Gorazdowski. Mobulus 6 is in the mail. They actually sent me a Mobulus 6 and it got rejected by customs because it had a lipo in it. So they sent me one without a lipo. Cura works well. Yeah, I think if you have a Prusa, you should use Prusa slicer. Obviously, they're made for it. Cura slicer makes sense to me. I like it. I'll keep using it for now. It seems like Cura is pretty popular. Let me get this super chat from Ron Grant. Ron Grant wants to know, how does camera angle in Betaflight affect the drone? So Ron Grant, here's a camera. Here's a quad here. This is just came in the mail. I'm going to be testing it out. This is the new, I guess it can't even be a 3-inch, can it? Maybe it is. From Avant Quads. Look at that little guy. Isn't that cute? Here's how camera angle affects the drone, Ron. Let's imagine that, so when you're flying, you're going to want to keep the horizon roughly center of your camera. So the more camera angle you have, the more the quad will up tilt or pitch forward when to you it just looks like the horizon is level. The less camera angle you have, the flatter the quad will be. So if you imagine a quad with 0 degrees of camera up tilt, the minute you start to fly, the horizon will rise and you'll be looking at the ground. So it's always good to have a little bit of up tilt, okay? Now, as you get more and more up tilt, several things happen. I want you to think about the thrust vector coming out of the motors. When the quad is flat, all of the thrust goes downwards. If the quad was pitched 90 degrees, all of the thrust would go backwards. And if you think about it, the quad would fall out of the air. There's no way the quad could stay up in the air because it doesn't have an airfoil, right? So it has to be pitched back at least a little bit in order to avoid falling out of the air. And the more it pitches forward, the more of the thrust goes backwards and the less of the thrust goes downwards. Which means that as you have more camera up tilt, your quad will go faster, but it will be harder to maintain altitude. The throttle gets much more touchy as you have more up tilt. And the other thing that happens is that the pitch and the roll axis, the balance between pitch and roll changes. So if you think about it, when the quad is perfectly flat, if you want to turn left, it's 100% yaw and 0% roll. Okay? When the quad is pitched 90 degrees forward, if you want to turn left, it's 100% roll and 0% yaw. Right? Think about that. So as you pitch forward more and more, you use more roll and less yaw to turn. So that is, in a nutshell, how camera angle affects the drone. The Donks Gaming, thanks for $3. Fist bump to you, my friend. Coelho FPV, thanks for $5. And the Donks, thanks for $2 more. What mah would you recommend for 4S? I guess you're asking probably about a typical 5-inch racing or freestyle quad. I like 1500 milliamp hours. License to Drive makes a good point. If you want to play with camera up tilt, play with it in a sim first. Absolutely. You'll wreck your quad the first time out. Definitely play with it in the sim, and you'll get a sense of the up tilt. Oh, Ghost Branch and Popular Mechanics are asking about the beta flight. They think that Ron Grant is asking about the Betaflight camera angle. Okay, my bad. So in the Betaflight configuration tab, there's a setting, camera up tilt. And what that does is this. Imagine that the quad is flat with a 0-degree camera angle, okay? Then when you yaw, the quad rotates flat. But if the quad is pitched forward, in order to do a flat turn, so think about it, the quad's pitched forward. If you were to do yaw right now, the quad would go like this, you see? That's a pure yaw move when you're pitched forward. But if you want to turn the quad so that the horizon stays flat, you need both roll and yaw, okay? And you know this if you fly quads, you do this intuitively. To make a turn, you need both roll and yaw at the same time. So what the Betaflight camera up tilt compensation does is it automatically adds in just the right amount of roll. So let's say that your quad is 20 degrees up tilt, and you have 20 degrees of Betaflight up tilt compensation. That means that when you're at 20 degrees pitch, you can turn with just the yaw stick, okay? You don't have to put roll in at all. Now, that's clever, but it has a problem. One of the problems is that if let's say you're at 20 degrees of up tilt, right? And you have 20 degrees of up tilt compensation. If you pitch forward some more to go faster, now you're at 40 degrees of up tilt. Well, now you have to put in roll to coordinate the turn because Betaflight is only putting in 20 degrees worth. So basically, the up tilt compensation makes the yaw and roll stick act as though you had less up tilt than you really do. Here's the thing. I think that for micro quads that are often flown without doing a lot of flippy floppies like tiny whoops, a little bit like 15 degrees of up tilt compensation can be helpful. I really don't like doing it. Sorry about that. I really don't like doing it for bigger quads and freestyle quads. When I played with it, I found that on snap moves, it would add yaw to snap rolls, and the yaw axis was not authoritative enough to snap like that. So if you think about it, normally when you do a snap roll, right, let's say you're pitched forward like this, and you do a snap roll, you snap just on the roll axis, okay, and the camera ends up looking downwards. If you've got up tilt compensation, it's going to try to do a combined yaw and roll move so the quad snaps flat. and the roll axis or the yaw axis just can't keep up with it. So I didn't like that. If you're doing any kind of snap roll moves, I didn't like that at all. Get Terden Boy wants to know if it compensates whether you're in angle. Well, when you're in angle mode, it doesn't matter. When you're in angle mode, it is always holding the quad at the given angle, regardless of your up tilt. So the camera up tilt compensation doesn't matter in angle mode, but it never has. So in angle mode, if you push the stick forward, the quad moves to a given angle. If you then add yaw, the quad just stays at that angle as long as you hold the pitch stick forward. So yeah, Tim C, I keep up tilt compensation at 0. I tried it for a while, and I started to like it, but then I noticed that there were these crazy, these weird, like the rear end would kick out when I would do a snap roll, and I guessed that the yaw axis just didn't have the authority to keep up with the roll axis. Okay. Sean Hales. Thank you for $5. Sean Hales, would you bother changing the bearings in your Zing 1507s? And so where would you get replacements? Sean Hales, if you know the size of the bearings, you can actually just order them from, you don't have to buy them from Zing. You can just buy bearings off the shelf, and they're just a standard bearing at a certain size. You need to know the bearing size, obviously. You can do that with a caliper if you just pull the bearing out, or you can try to ask the manufacturer what size bearings they are. You usually can get bearings cheaper buying them from just a generic supplier rather than buying them from a manufacturer, although the manufacturer is probably buying them in large lots, so maybe they're cheaper if you're just buying a few. Usually manufacturers mark up the price of bearings pretty high, and anyway, but you need to know the size of the bearings. I don't change the bearings in my motors. I don't know if I'm just a hack. I mean, I am a hack. Let's just be honest. I have tried changing bearings before. I have never successfully removed a bearing from a motor without destroying the bearing. But okay, it's a dead bearing anyway. I have never successfully installed a bearing in a motor without destroying the bearing. I don't have the tools. Like, you need a press and you need a... I don't know. To be honest with you, usually I just replace the motors. Peter Bazilwick, thanks for €2. Sorry for mangling your name. What's the recipe for a long time flying quad? Quad. I have a video, Peter. Quadcopter long flight time. It's this video. And I'm going to paste it in the chat for you. I'm going to... Here it is. The short version, Peter, is make the quadcopter lighter, use less up tilt, which makes you fly slower, fly at a lower throttle position, use larger props and lower KV motors. Those are some of the things. The single biggest thing you can do to make a quadcopter fly longer is use larger props. But you're usually restricted by the size of the frame. Usually the assumption is that you want to use the same 5-inch frame, but you don't. You just want more flight time. At that point, making the quad lighter is one of the biggest things you can do. Lower KV motors and flying at less up tilt. Yeah, Popular Mechanics agrees with me. Okay, and by the way, this is not just because I'm a YouTuber and I just get all the motors I want for free, which I don't, by the way. But I do get some motors for free. Even back when I was like buying everything out of pocket and scrounging for props and stuff, I've tried changing bearings. I just have always failed to change bearings. Somewhere out there, there's a machinist who would show me what I'm doing wrong. Like, I cannot extract the bearing and I cannot install the bearing without destroying them. So if it's like a $7 or $8 motor, I'm just like, screw it. Just putting in, yeah. Stephen Lowenson, thank you for $5. What motors would you recommend for a long-range 7-inch build with the DJI Air Unit and Hero 6? I think, Stephen, what I would do, see, here's the thing. If you said you wanted a 1300 kV motor, There are very limited selection. But if you're building a 7-inch, what you could do is you could get some 1750 kV motors designed for 6S and either run them on 4S or you could run them on 6S with a throttle curve. I think for 7-inch, most people would go for larger motors on 7-inch. Like a lot of people running 7 inches, like 2407, 2208, maybe 25 or even 26 millimeter motors. But the thing you get with those bigger motors is more torque. And if you're going for cruising and long range, you actually don't need that. And so those bigger motors with their bigger stator volume are going to pull more current, and you don't need it. It's like it's like going to the grocery store in a big 500 horsepower V8. It's not doing what it's designed to do. So I would say that even something like a 2306 or a 2207 motor, a smaller motor at a low kV, like a 1600 kV or 1700 kV for 4S, or if you like, okay, I want to run 6S though, then just keep the throttle low and use a throttle limit. If you can find a motor you like that's closer to 1400 kV, then on 6S, then you're going to get longer flight times, but of course with less power. The other thing I would do, Stephen, is since you're building a Shendrone's Ichabod, I would look at other Ichabod builds, and instead of taking advice, like I've flown some 7 inches, but not long range, and that's just not an area I have a ton of experience. So, I mean, thank you for your super chat, but I would go look at what Andy Shen has built and what other 7-inch pilots have built and try to take a cue from them. Racer Star 2508, 1200 kV are excellent motors for a 7-inch build, says Batterex. Batterex, I've always been a little bit turned off by Racer Star motors. They're cheap, but really hit or miss in quality. But, yeah, I mean, they're not terrible, but just a bit hit or miss. Thank you, RGMG, for the $5 super chat. How's it going over in the Discord? Haven't seen a ton of questions in the Discord. Brother Hobby 2407 1750 kV, says Simon Saucy. Yep. I just question. I'm really questioning. I'm not like disparaging. If you're going for a acro style, because 7-inch can do acro, not acro like a 5-inch, but it can do acro. So if you're going for like an acro style 7-inch, then you're going to want a big beefy motor with enough torque to accelerate that prop aggressively. But if you're going for cruising, is there really a benefit to going up to like the 25XX stator size? I mean, I know a 2207 will swing a 7-inch prop. Now, if you start trying to do flippy flops and snap rolls, it's going to saturate. It's going to not have enough torque to accelerate. You're going to be unhappy. But if all you're doing is long range cruising, it feels to me like a smaller motor, like a 2207 or 2306, is actually going to maybe give you a little more efficiency. I don't know. Joshua FPV wants the link to the Discord. Joshua FPV, the Discord is open to patrons. So if you want to get on the Discord, hang out with those beautiful people, there's a link in the video description to my Patreon page for as little as $2 a month or more if you feel like I've earned it. That's what I like to say. I always want people to donate whatever you feel like I've earned. See, this is like, it's like being a wait. It's like being not a waiter, like being a busker on the street. I got my hat out and I'm answering your questions about Betaflight. I never could play guitar, but I'm just answering your questions about Betaflight on the street. And, if that makes you feel like you want to throw a couple bucks in my hat, then that's how it works. And that's how you get the link to the Discord. Ooh. Cobra 2208, 1180 kV, 8-inch on 6S. I like the sound of that, Kent West. Yeah, if you could find a good motor, if you're going to run 6S, I think 1750 kV is a great kV for 7-inch on 4S. If you can get a good motor that has a lower kV for 6S, I think you're going to do well. Kiazaw wants to know the wiring setup for a Mamba F405 with the RXSR. Normally, I would hesitate to do a wiring question, but this one's going to be so freaking easy. This is the Mamba F405 with RXSR. Okay, let me get a good image here. That's the Mamba Mini. That's not what we want. There's a good image. There we go. Can I just get the picture, please? Can I get the picture, please? Thank you. So, RXSR. Green wire to S-bus. Red wire to 5 volts. Black wire to ground. And then, okay, that's it. Now, if you want to do smart port telemetry, that's the yellow wire. The yellow wire is going to go to PPM, and then you're going to use this technique. Shush, Joshua. You're going to use this technique to remap the PPM pad to be soft serial. And that's why they put PPM here, I think. Because if you're using a PPM receiver, then you'll use this as PPM. But if you're not using a PPM receiver, they expect you to remap this to soft serial and use it for smart port. Unfortunately, they didn't give you an easy way to do smart port. The good news is you don't have to have smart port. So if you just did green wire to S-bus, red wire to 5 volt, black wire to ground, you'd be good to go. That's the answer. Boom. Kyoza, hope that helps. Message me on Facebook if you need more help, Kyoza. Ratburger08 in the Discord asks a very good question. I always wondered the reasoning behind long range on a quad as opposed to a wing or something. You're absolutely right, Ratburger. A wing is always going to be more efficient and have longer endurance than a quadcopter. Quadcopters are not actually very efficient. The big reason quadcopters are useful is the ability to hover. So if you need the ability to hover over a spot, like you're doing some kind of aerial photography, if you need to take off and land from inaccessible places, with a wing, of course, you can hand launch it from just about anywhere, but you do need some room. Landing, however, is more tricky. The other thing is that with multi-rotors, even with like a Pixhawk setup or a DJI setup, even an inexperienced person can land a multi-rotor because basically you just hit return to home and it does it. Whereas landing a wing is a lot trickier. So those are some of the reasons people choose multi-rotors over wings. Ways to fly up wants to know if the Jumper T12 can have an internal 4-in-1 module. That is a good question. I would have to say no. El Bartnox RXSR does have a pad for inverted smart port. In my opinion, El Bartnox, it's easier and simpler to use the existing smart port output on the RXSR and do soft serial on the PPM pad. And that's clearly what Diatone intended. That's why they put the PPM pad. I'm looking over at the diagram, just double checking my work. The first time you do smart port telemetry in the CLI, it is a little bit stressful, but it's not that hard. And you just gotta, how do you remap it? There we go. Here I am. You just gotta figure out what pin to remap to. That's the tricky part. But the video goes into it all and shows it all. Okay. Luke Meyer wants to know if you can laser cut carbon fiber. Good question. I'm not sure I would. I don't know about that. Sander Puh says, Joshua Bardwell, I'm trying to use my HDOs. By the way, Sander, thank you for being a patron. Sander is asking this question in the Discord server, which you can get access to by becoming a patron. Link in the video description. I'm trying to use my HDOs in the simulator, but I can't get the display working. It shows for like 3 seconds with weird flashing lines and goes to black. Sander Puh, the HDOs are a little bit picky about what resolution they will accept. The simplest thing you can do is set the resolution. Try 720p. Resolution, so 720 by whatever, 1280, and then try the native resolution of the screen. That's what I would do. You say you've tried different refresh rates and resolutions, nothing helped. I can tell you, Sander, I've tried. I mean, obviously the HDMI input works, like it works with Bitefrost. So definitely check the refresh rate and the resolution. That's got to be what it is. And Sander Putt, if you're still having problems, then email support@fatshark.com and ask them what resolution is supported. Just Alex points us out that carbon fiber will go on fire if you laser cut it. That's what I thought too, but I didn't want to presume. Pro10 to go says, Joshua Bardwell, I ran my VTX without an antenna for about a minute. Low power disarm was on. Today the video wasn't great. Is it possible that it's just a little broken, or would it be all done? Well, look, the bottom line is that some VTX will be fine if run without an antenna, and some VTX will destroy themselves if they're run for even a minute or a second without an antenna. It just depends. If you think that you are getting reduced range, number one, make sure it's not just like you're anxious about it and you're getting placebo effect. But if you ran it without an antenna and now you have reduced range, it's at least a little broken, and it's just a question of, like, how broken is it? How much is the range reduced? Jason asks in the Pleb Chat, hello, plebs. What is it okay to solder 18650s? Yes, Jason, it is okay to solder them. I solder them. What I would suggest you do is, number one, use a file, or I use a file to scuff the tip and remove any coating that's on the tip. You can use sandpaper, or you can use some kind of buffing, but be careful that you don't cut into it. But scuff the tip, and then you're going to need a hot as shit iron and a big heavy tip, because it soaks heat so much. It's very difficult with most typical soldering setups to get good join on the 18650. However, let's see if I can find it. Yeah. So here's a video I did where I don't necessarily recommend that you do this, but it does show how to solder. Am I actually soldering on the? No. Where's the one where I soldered on the 18650s? Nope. I just don't show it. Do I never show making one? Nope. Okay, well, here. Watch this old episode of Roto Riot where they do the work. So you can do it. It's better, yes. Wicked Coyote, you're 100% right. It's better to have a spot welder for 18650s. Cage Drummer, I talked a little bit about the Ender 3 at the beginning of the stream. I showed my awesome stringing tower. I showed my awesome stringing tower at the beginning of the stream. Here's a quick look back at it. This was, yeah, not bad. Pretty good for a Bowden, isn't it? Okay. Does DJI have a longer camera cable? Asks John Babowski. No, they do not. You're stuck with that. You just got to figure out how to make it work. Shy Old Fox, I can only assume you are pulling my leg, mentioning Kebab FPVs, wanting my battery tester. I can tell you something about the battery tester. Some of you saw a video I put out earlier, I think it was last week, about responding to Kebab talking about my battery tester. I took that video down. I have a policy. So here's something I've learned about YouTube in my time on YouTube. The first thing, and I'm serious about this is good data, and if you are thinking about like being on YouTube, this is my advice to you. Number one is never whine. Okay? So like what I mean by that is never go, well, you guys, I've been having a really hard time, and I watch this video anyway because I worked really hard on it. Nobody cares. I mean, some people cared, don't get me wrong. But, like, never it's like if you go into a store and somebody is like, hey man, will you buy this car? I really need to make a sale this month. I haven't made any sales. This car, will you buy it? It really would mean a lot to me, right? Nobody, that's not how to, you want people to watch the content because you're giving them something that they want, not because they're giving you something that you want. So never whine. Like sometimes it can be an interesting bit of backstory to tell about difficulties you had, but never whine. And this video contains some whining, and that's one reason I put it down. And the other thing is, it gave an impression that I was more upset with Kebab than I really was. Kebab's actually, he's one of my favorite people in FPV. He does so much, he contributes so much. And to think that he just does it on the side while he's doing dentistry full-time just means a lot. So anyway, I took the video down. But it was about my battery tester. My battery test machine, it was actually inspired by Kebab giving me a hard time. So in that sense, it's a good thing. My battery tester, basically what I said in that video is I've been trying for the last like 2 years to hire somebody to do the battery testing for me and have failed, basically. And so I sent the battery, but I had somebody on the line who was going to hopefully start doing the testing for me for real this time, and I actually sent the battery tester off to him. It should be arriving at his house on Monday, and the very first tests I've asked him to do is tests of the BT 2.0 connector versus the PH 2.0 connector for 1S micro whoops. And hopefully after he gets up and running, he actually, I found out about him. He's on my Patreon, and he has an existing humongous spreadsheet of battery test data he's been doing. He actually already owns the small version of the test machine that I own. I have the big 2,000 watt version. He has the little 500 watt version. So I was like, dude, do you want to work for me? So hopefully that will work out. Chamber, don't be mad. I know you said you would do it. I know you said what you would do. Here's the thing. They say, and by the way, so many people came out of the woodwork to say, I'll do the testing for you. Thank each and every one of you for your generosity. One of the biggest challenges in finding someone to do the testing is knowing that they know how to do it right. Knowing that they know how to look at the results and go, something's not right about this, as opposed to just running through a checklist and presenting the results. And the fact that this guy has been doing his own battery testing for however long means he has a level of experience that a lot of people who are coming out of the woodwork and saying, I'll do it for you. I appreciate everybody who's doing it, who offered, but this guy's experience really made him. Anyway. So that's the deal with the battery testing. I'm still hopefully getting that going. Now people are talking about water jet cutting carbon fiber. Milling, let's see. Yeah, somebody's tried it, but it did not work well, says Zach Cakesley. Okay. Yeah, license to drive. I hope so. The big thing is license to drive. I have found 2 or 3 people who seemed like they had promise, and in each case, in one case, the guy's mother had medical problems that meant he had to suddenly take care of her and stop working on it. And in another case, the guy ended up like he's doing like 80 hours of work every week. His company started just working the shit out of him, and he didn't have any time to do it. And I don't have any, I mean, obviously life happens, but I'm crossing my fingers that this one doesn't suddenly fall through, especially because I just spent $250 to ship the damn thing across the country. And that's not whining. Just saying. They're heavy and they're expensive to ship. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Blitz FPV wants to know, I don't have a big budget. Would the Sky 030 be worth upgrading for the EV800s, or should I upgrade my DX6 to better radio? Blitz, I think the DX6 is a pretty good radio. I personally would go from the EV800 to the Sky 030 rather than take the DX6 to a different radio. to me, the weakness of the Spectrum ecosystem is its receivers, although some of the new receivers like the 4649T are pretty damn good. But I feel like the DX6 is a pretty solid radio overall, and that I would rather go from the EV800 to the Skyo 3.0. The Skyo 3.0 is a damn good goggle. Claudio Murdaca. I talked about the Cat X Vista earlier in the live stream. I actually opened with it. So roll back in that DVR and check that out. Yeah. I'll tell you a little story. I'm pretty sure this story is okay to tell. So the guy who was doing my battery tester, he works as a security guard at a government site. And he said, look, I'll do like 4 days on, 3 days off. So when I have my long weekends, I'll do the battery testing for you. But then he got all this overtime. Well, one day he just disappeared. He just stopped responding to messages. He was gone for like 3 weeks. And when he came back, he said, sorry about that. They shipped me out to remember the raid on Area 51 thing? Where all the Redditors were going to go to Area 51 and like raid Area 51. He said they shipped me out to Area 51 for a couple weeks in preparation for if anything went down, and I wasn't allowed to talk about it. So thanks, Redditors. You screwed up my battery testing. Stu Pedasso FPV says, if I run Crossfire on a Spectrum IX12, will I get rid of Team Failsafe? Yes. Crossfire never failsafes. No, that's not true. But Crossfire, when set up properly, is extremely resistant to failsafe, much more resistant than Spectrum. Popular Mechanics says, speaking of connectors, someone this morning was asking about using those USB magnetic quick connectors. Here's what he's talking about in case you're not clear. He is talking about something like this. Have you guys ever seen these? You ever seen these before? So what you do with these is you stick this piece in your phone or your flight controller, and then this piece magnetically sticks on. And there are several advantages. One advantage is that you don't wear out your USB port, right? You don't wear it out just plugging and unplugging. The other advantage is if you like yank it, it just pops off. It doesn't break. That's pretty cool. Now, Popular Mechanics is asking whether there would be any issue with having the magnet near the gyro. No, no issue at all. If you had a compass, a magnetometer, then there would be an issue. But you could probably calibrate that away. The reason I don't use these on all of my quads, I thought about it, is that have you ever been somewhere and been like, hey, can I borrow your USB cable? I don't have one. If you ever need to borrow a USB cable, you would have to like get that thing out of there, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. So I just stick with regular USB cables. I will say though, on my Beast class, the flight controller is buried up inside the frame, and I put one of these on there so that I can just kind of fish the cable in, and as it gets close, it goes and sucks on. So there is a place for them, but I don't use them on all of my quads. They're pretty slick. Yeah, it also protects it from debris. That's a very good point, Blake Nation. If you wanted to commit to this and put one of these on like every USB thing you owned, and then just buy like 20 of these cables and scatter them all around your house, and one in your backpack and one in your pocket, so you always had one with you, it'd be pretty freaking cool. It's pretty nice. Steve-O says, do you need a ham license to use Crossfire? TBS's official answer is that you do not. TBS's official answer is that Crossfire is part 15 or whatever it is, and you don't need a ham license. I have heard from some RF guys who have looked at Crossfire on a spectrum analyzer and gone, you should really need a ham license for this. But TBS's official answer is that they got it through the FCC. So either it's legit or they slipped it through. But either way, the technical answer is you do not need a ham license. What brand are the ones I'm using? I honestly don't remember, Michael. I mean, I actually have them, like... Yeah, these are them, but I don't think the brand is on there. The other thing about these that's weird is if you plug them in one way, it is only power. And if you plug it in the other way, so like literally if you flip it 180 degrees, it's only power. If you flip it 180 degrees, it is only it has data. I guess if you could like pay attention to which way it was, you could use that to your advantage. There does not seem to be any brand on here. It's just some Chinese brand. I don't know. Kai wants to know, when am I going to review the TBS Tango 2? Whenever... Well, let's put it this way, Kai. TBS hasn't sent me one, and it's not available for sale yet, so how am I going to review it? Yeah, Michael says the cables I bought didn't work for data transfer, only for charging. Well, I mean, I can't guarantee you your cables are the same as mine. But yeah, if you flip it over... It releases in 2 weeks. Sean K. Hi, Sean K. Does doing a super chat not get your attention? Sean K., I get the super chats every maybe 15 or 20 minutes. I don't do the super chats just obsessively. That's how I do it. I hope that's okay with you. If that's not okay with you, no hard feelings. I try to spend most of my time answering questions from the plebs and just give a little bit of preference to my patrons. And I don't want to, you know, I've been helping people for free my whole career, and it's worked pretty well for me. So I'm going to keep it up. Sean K. gives thank you for $5 in the super chat, Sean K. I'm having an issue on throttle up and moving sticks like oscillation, but after I'm in the air, everything's fine and it's gone. Any ideas? I'm not 100% sure I understand your issue, Sean K. I'm having an issue on... so it seems like you're having an issue like when you arm and you're still on the ground. But after I'm up in the air, I would say if you're up in the air and everything's fine, then just, you know, don't sit on the ground and idle. I guess if like you're a racer and you have to arm and idle. Sean K., I'm not 100% sure I understand your issue. So you got to let me know like what's really going on. And if you don't manage to get back to me on the live stream, you absolutely can message me on Facebook and I'll be glad to help you, regardless of whether you gave a super chat. Yeah, right around. But what happens, Sean, when you first throttle up? What happens? Like you say, it's moving sticks like oscillation isn't really telling me what's going on. What is plebs? Pleb, Jason Cooley, the word is plebeians. It basically just means common people. Focus for Life wants to know, why does FPV need a ham license? Focus for Life, the law in the United States is that if you don't have a ham license, basically the goal of the regulation is to prevent people from transmitting in a way that causes interference. And either you can have a Part 15 certified device, and the device is certified that it won't cause interference, or you can be certified as an operator that you know how to not cause interference. Those are the options. So you can have your ham license, which means you know how to operate without causing interference, or you can basically have a device that's been dumbed down so it can't cause interference no matter what you do. So either the device or the operator needs to be safe. The video transmitters we use are not Part 15. So you have to have your ham license to use them. What's going over here in the Discord? Wait, let me get the super chats out of the way before I miss a bunch more. And I'm still looking for Sean K to tell me more about what's going wrong. Okay. Wild Ape FPV, you put your call sign in the OSD, and that fulfills the requirement that you identify yourself. Of course, a lot of people don't put their call sign in the OSD. Kool-Aid Man, it was a joke, dude. There was a person in the chat who asked, "Hey Joshua, I'm Muslim. Can I still have a ham license?" That's not a political question. It's a joke about Muslims not being able to eat pork. Okay, so can you have a ham license? When I saw that, I also first thought it was a political question, but it isn't. It's just a joke about ham. Want to get fly. Thanks for $2 in the super chat. Is the DJI transmitter worth it over a Tyrannus? Want to get fly. If you have any quads that don't have DJI in them, I personally wouldn't use the DJI transmitter because I hate carrying two transmitters. The DJI transmitter is very nice, and the big advantage of the DJI transmitter is you can do 100% of the setup in the goggles. Like literally, you can even set up your flight modes. Like I learned this just yesterday. You can set up angle mode, turtle mode, arming mode in the goggles, and the goggles will communicate to the flight controller and set it up for you. You almost kind of don't have to go into Betaflight. That's pretty cool. But if you have any non-DJI quads, you're going to have two transmitters, and that's annoying. Sean K, still not seeing you in the chat. Let me know. Hit me up on Facebook, Sean K, and I'll definitely try and help you. Space Cadet Media, thanks for $5. How can I get in-flight audio for the DJI system? You basically can't, Space Cadet. You basically can't. In theory, you could use a 5 gig analog video transmitter with a microphone and a separate set of headphones, but don't do that. Drone Obsessed Jerry, thanks for $5. Added new 3D printers to the @Drone Interest Group collection. I don't know what that is. 2 Soval SVO1 on your recommendations and 2 CR10 Pro S on the journey with you. Awesome. What is the @Drone Interest Group, though, Drone Obsessed Jerry? Ron Grant, thanks for $2. Can you run 8K on the T-Motor F7 with RPM filtering? Yes, Ron Grant, you can run 8K on an F7 with RPM filtering. That does work. Jason Sawchuk, thanks for $3 Canadian. Okay. How's it going over on the Discord? Chamber, I'm not going to repeat what you said because your turkey license. Never mind. I thought it was your... Koseba wants to know if I tried the latest Orca firmware update. There's a new setting, Luminescence, which addresses the issue you mentioned. Yeah, that's true. Koseba, this is one of the great things about the Orcas is they are releasing firmware updates fast and furious, but it does make it hard to review them. Because if I complain about something in the review, a week later they fixed it, but the review kind of just stands because that's how YouTube is. So Orca's new firmware, one of the things I mentioned, I didn't even really complain about it, is that the Orcas are a little bit dimmer, I think, than the Fat Sharks. And I actually took the Fat Sharks and the Orcas to this whoop race I went to last week, and I gave them to people and just asked them to try them out and see what they thought. And almost everybody was more impressed with the Fat Sharks than the Orcas. Not everybody, but... And I was actually surprised. And I think what's going on is, you know how like in a Best Buy or whatever, all the TVs are like cranked to the maximum brightness because they want you to be blown away with how awesome their pictures are. But if you actually took it home and like calibrated it, it would actually be dimmer and it would like have a better picture. But they're just trying to slap you in the face with how awesome their screens are. And I think there's a little bit of that effect going on with the Fat Sharks. When I tested the Fat Sharks and the Orcas, the Fat Sharks actually had slightly blown out whites and slightly crushed blacks. So the picture looked more contrasty, but had just a little bit less detail. And I think the Fat Shark is just a little brighter. So Orca's new firmware has added the ability to turn they call it luminescence, to make the screens brighter, and that's pretty exciting. I think that'll help close the first impression gap between the Orcas and the Fat Sharks. Okay. Yeah. DJI Pop, yeah, YouTube got rid of annotations. We can still have that little pop-out card at the top, but no annotations. Luke Meyer, any plans on an EV300D review? I would love to review it, Luke. Why don't I have any? Usually things just come in the mail. Who sells the EV300D? I would love to review it. It looks very exciting. Everybody else gets it before me. To be fair, I take forever to make reviews. So, like, vendors send me product, and they're like, okay, it's coming out in 4 days. Can you finish the review? And I'm like, probably not. And then it's release day, and Oscar Leong and Albert Kim and everybody else releases their review. And I'm like, and then like a week and a half later, I finally finish my review. And, you know, that's not good for sales. Where are my priorities? So then vendors are not as excited about sending me product like the day of launch. I don't blame them. So where is it? Is it sold on like Banggood? Yeah, it looks like it's on pre-order at Banggood. That's why I haven't got one. So I would love to review it, but it's on pre-order until it's actually available. Either Eachine has to send me one, and I kind of hesitate to review pre-order stuff anyway. Like if I get a pre-order set of goggles, it's great because I can like get the video out the day of launch and then everybody's excited. Like I was super grateful that Orca sent me a set of goggles so fast during their shipment because I could get them out. I'm super grateful that Fat Shark sent me HDO2s before release because with those companies, I feel confident that what I get is representative of what they're going to sell, especially Fat Shark. But sometimes I get pre-release products and I review it, and then by the time it comes out, it's changed. And I'm like, well, what did I review? So I'd love the EV300D. In case you don't know, the EV300D is a 1280 by 960. That's 4:3 resolution. Same resolution as the Orcas and the HDO2s. OLED? Is it OLED? It's not OLED, though. It's LCOS, the same as the earlier ones. So it's not going to have the same image quality as an OLED screen. It's not going to be bad, though. If the EV200s are any indication, it's not going to be bad. 1280 by 960. What's the FOV? Doesn't say. Okay. So yeah, I think it's going to be, and at a price of $320, it could be pretty exciting. Yeah. I see some people in the chat talking about this. Let's take a minute and let's talk about this. In last week's live stream, I asked you guys to go and help get this Stack Exchange over the hump. Now, in case you don't know what Stack Exchange is, let's find a different Stack Exchange that will, like, let's go to the 3D printing Stack Exchange. This is also in beta. Questions. Let's see. Are there any questions? So, where's a Stack Exchange that actually isn't in beta? Commercial aviation. Okay. So Stack Exchange is a website where people can ask questions and get answers from experts, and then the answers are voted on, and the questions are preserved for all of time. And it is awesome. If you're a programmer, you already know about Stack Exchange because programmers are one of the people, I think that's where it got started, although I'm not sure about that. So here, for example, is a question. Does the sterile cockpit rule mean flight attendants could not inform the pilots of the passengers in the lab while on final? I don't know anything about this, but let's see. The question gets upvoted. If it's an interesting question, people can upvote the question. And then after the answers, people can upvote the answers. And one of the answers will be picked as like the best answer. This is a super, super great resource. And this is a beta Stack Exchange for drones and model aircraft. Now, there have been several beta flight Stack Exchanges before, several attempts to do one about FPV, one about beta flight, and they have all failed. This one has gotten to the commitment stage. And what we need is, let me make sure I get this right. Hold on. I got to look up exactly, because I'm talking to the guy who is trying to get this Stack Exchange going, and he told me exactly what we need, and I want to get it right. He says, we need to fulfill the requirements of the commit stage. We need to have more than 200 people digitally sign the petition. Okay? So right now, yeah. By the way, don't be turned off by the fact that he used the word advertise. No one is paying me to do this. I just believe in this and want to see it happen. So what we need is, if you haven't, go sign up on Stack Exchange, or if you're already signed up on Stack Exchange, you need to go and make a commitment. Now, see, I've already committed, so my commitment is already registered. You need to make a commitment, and you need to follow through on that commitment. And it's pretty exciting if this goes through, because one of the things that's challenging is that there are these questions that people ask, and it's the same question 100 times, and a lot of times I make videos about those. Okay. But the ability to have it on Stack Exchange in text and indexed with the best answer right there, it would be a big deal. So I want to encourage you to go ahead. Well, I put my referral link in the chat. What's my referral link? How do I find my referral link? Where is that? Where's my referral link? I'd love to do that. I don't know what that is. Someone help me find my referral link. Scroll down on the Mage page. Drones and model aircraft. Oh, is this it? Yes, that's what. Okay, so here's the link. And the advantage of using my referral link is I get, I have to bit.ly it. I get like credit on there, which means that I can have more influence on helping make this happen. There's my referral link. Okay. Zaush Kimbata. What about the Runcam Phoenix Oscar Edition? I reviewed it. I'll link you to my review. I think it's a very good-looking camera, but it is really poor in low light. So here is the link to the Runcam Phoenix Oscar Edition review. GWFPV wants to know, is there any reason why I can't conformal coat a working now that it's snowing in St. Louis? Should I? Did you? I don't understand. I don't understand. I can't conformal coat a working. Jason Sawchuk says, GT349 HD, is it normal that it gets very warm when sitting on the bench plugged into USB and battery connected for sitting up? Yes. The VTX gets very, very warm. So, it's normal. Ghost Branch FPV in the Discord wants to know, there's some folks in the FPV community that used to be big names and all of a sudden vanish for no apparent reason. If someone were to track such people down and do an interview with them, what are some people you'd want to see on such a show? Interesting, Ghost Branch. Well, Ghost Branch mentions Sharpoo. In case you don't know, Sharpoo, some of you guys might not even know who Sharpoo is, although that's hard to believe. Sharpoo was a very big FPV pilot back when FPV was first blowing up. And he was also, and still is, I think he's a lead animator at Pixar. So eventually he started working on, I can't remember if it was Boss Baby was the movie where he just disappeared from FPV, but he went back to his day job at Pixar, which is like the most awesome job anybody could ever have, and decided that he'd rather do that than FPV, be an FPV rock star. So Ghost Branch's question is, who would you like to see interviewed from the early days of FPV? Post it in the chat, and we'll see. Metal Danny. Metal Danny also doesn't seem to fly as much as he used to. He was a pretty badass guy, though. Metal Danny was one of the first on the list, says Ghost Branch. Sharpoo, of course. Go ahead. Final Glide. Final Glide has kind of left FPV, but only very recently. He's gone back to gliders. Snake, Matty Stunts. Matty is still out there. I mean, he doesn't seem to post as much as he did, but he's still out there. I mean, I guess Sharpoo's not dead. Rich Moore. Rich Moore says, I'm buying my second set of 5-inch quad motors, iFlight motors. Is there no such thing as clockwise and counterclockwise threading anymore? Rich, not really. Most motors nowadays have just gone to standard threading. Here's the reason why I think that is. Because of turtle mode, there's no... When your motors only turn one way, then if you put the nut on the other way, it will never loosen up. But with turtle mode, the motors reverse. So a nut that is correct when you're in flight will loosen when you turtle mode. So you just have to have nylock nuts that are on tight and stay tight, and that's it. So at that point, there's no point in having opposite threaded shafts. Space Cadet Media, thanks for $5 in the super chat. Why not add a transmitter for just audio? Can you elaborate? Yeah, Space Cadet Media, you could add a video transmitter. I mean, you could add an audio transmitter, but I don't think such a thing really exists. The problem is that having 5 gigahertz analog and 5 gigahertz DJI on the same quad is going to reduce the range of the DJI. Depending on the output power of the analog video transmitter, it could reduce it a lot. It could reduce it just a little, but it's going to have an effect. And I just am not sure it's really worth it. You need a ground station with an analog out. And there's no way in the DJI to have analog like out of the AV input or something. So you would need a separate ground station. You need a separate set. I just doesn't, like, can you possibly want audio that bad? Now here's the interesting thing. The Air unit records audio. The Air unit has a microphone. I guarantee you DJI could unlock the ability for the Air unit to transmit audio to the goggles via a firmware update, and maybe they will. Like, I just am so sure they could do that. Sorry about the slurping, guys. I'm coming to the end of my drink. Northeast FPV, any recommendations for a frame perfect for FPV? That's a great opportunity for me to mention my website, the Ultimate FPV Shopping List. And on top of that, I have actually, we have moved the website to a new back end, and I have been, look at this, updated December 13th, 2 days ago. I've been going through the site, updating it hardcore. We've also got some photos here. This photo is taken by J.R. Pellegrini is his name. He goes by Scarecrow FPV. He is an amazing photographer. In fact, check this out. There's the, whoop! Is that not a hell of a good photograph? He's so good. So thank you. He took these shots from my website. And I have a section here on frames. Now, these are not the only good frames you can get for DJI. But my goal with the website is to, like, just cherry pick a few good ones so you don't have to, like, be overwhelmed. And you can definitely check that out. Another one that just came out is the Newbie Drone just released a new frame, and it's on pre-order. That has some pretty cool features that are worth looking at. Here it is, the Vivid. The Newbie Drone Vivid is a frame specifically designed for DJI. It is the first frame that I know of to have metal brackets to hold the Air unit in place and hold the antennas in place. So that's pretty slick. The other thing you'll see about the Vivid is, look how, stop that. Just give me the damn picture, please. Look at that. Oh my God. Look how far the front end sticks out, right? That's to keep the props out of the view of the camera, and that's pretty clever. So these are some frames you could look at. This looks like Martin Barrett is in the chat. Martin Barrett, is he he's the designer of the Pagoda, isn't he? He's the designer. Yeah. Is Martin Barrett in the chat? Or are you just shouting him out? He's the designer of the Pagoda. He's a big deal if he's here. Well, be careful, Slyplay Mike. Slyplay Mike says it seems pointless to go with one of those frames or whatever with the Vista coming out. The Vista VTX. Hang on. Gravity loss rodent frame. No. TBS Source 1. TBS Macron FPV, TBS Source 1 is a good frame, but have they updated it for the DJI Air unit, or do you still need to remove one of the standoffs? Is there a DJI version of it? Swiss FPV wants to know if you can connect a DJI Air unit directly to the battery for a wing. No, you can. You can connect it. It's got great filtering and it's a digital system. It doesn't suffer from video noise or anything like that. You can only go up to 4S, though, Swiss FPV, not 5S or 6S, but that's probably not an issue for you. LiveU FPV is here as well. How about that? Everybody's here. No, well, here's the thing, Macron. It's an open source frame, so all it's going to take is some jerk with Fusion 360 to just be like, now you have a DJI version. So that's the beauty of the open source frame. Someone's going to come up with a mod for it. I'm surprised they haven't already. What am I drinking? Luke Meyer wants to know. It's good old Arnold Palmer. Tea and lemonade. Mio. Mio squirts. Mio flavor squirts. Sponsor my streams, Mio. Who knows who's Mio's ad agency? Mio liquid water enhancers are my preferred way of powering up my streams. Before every stream, I grab a Mio and I squeeze more into life. Squeeze more into the life of my streams. My preferred Mios are a combination of the sweet tea and lemonade to make a flavored Arnold Palmer. But I have many Mio squirts in my cupboard for any mood that might strike me. Mio, let Mio motivate you with caffeine, B vitamins, and electrolytes. See how good I did that? Mio, sponsor my streams. Oh. Zaush Kimbata wants to know what, by the way, I apologize, I probably mispronounced your name. Wants to know what RPM filtering is. RPM filtering is so what's filtering? Filtering is a way of removing vibrations from the gyro data that are unwanted, that get in the way. Imagine trying to listen to a conversation while a loudspeaker is screaming in your ear, right? You want to filter that out. And the motors are the primary source of those unwanted vibrations. RPM filtering reads the motor RPM and uses that to dynamically adjust filters in real time as the motors change speed. Krikor Yalmanian wants to know, does the DJI goggle OSD show the DJI remote RSSI anywhere? That's a good question. I don't think so, Krikor. You only... I think the assumption is that the video will always run out before the controller. Because if you think about it, the video link is 25 megabits per second, but the controller, like, how much data is the controller really sending to the quad? So I don't think there's a separate RSSI for the remote if you're using it. But I think you can assume that if your video hasn't fail-safed, your controller won't either. Unless the controller was damaged. I mean, that could happen. Maybe you got a bad antenna or something. Maybe. B Random FPV is going to Jamaica. Is there anything I should know before I fly with my quads? I have a video about flying with quads. I'll put that, actually there's a ton of videos about it. Here's mine, traveling with lipos. And I'll paste that in the chat. The short version is carry on your batteries. Have your batteries in a separate bag so they're easy to pull out and get swabbed if they get swabbed. Don't check any lipos. That's not allowed. You carry them on. If they light on fire, they want them to light on fire in the cabin, not in the cargo hold. And if you have any tools or anything like that, technically tools under 7 inches are okay to carry on in the U.S., but personally I always check my tools because I don't want to take a chance on losing them. Rodin FPV frame. Alien Cowboy is suggesting I check out the Rodin FPV frame. I can't find it. That doesn't exist. Rodin quadcopter frame. Where is it? Doesn't exist. Nope. Well, if it exists, the SEO is really bad on it. Swiss FPV, thanks for 5 Swiss francs in the super chat. Simon Saucy in the Discord wants to know what I use to store my old videos. Like, do you have a huge hard drive or something? Simon, I have a 3 terabyte RAID array that I use to download backups of my YouTube channel. Filmmakers are going to freak out when I say this, but I don't keep any of my old raw footage. I only store the final edits. And I do that because it would be a redonkulous amount of data, and I just can't be bothered. But I back up the YouTube channel to a 3 terabyte RAID array, and I keep the final edits. Jersey Boy FPV in the Discord, thank you for being a patron, Jersey Boy. My 6-inch bandolero has an ugly wobble side to side after new Hobbywing G3 stack install and update to Betaflight 411. I really don't know where to start with the filters. That's a tough one, Jersey Boy. I think that just, a side-to-side wobble is going to be tricky to solve. It just isn't, like, when does it happen? Does it happen at idle? Does it happen at mid-throttle? Does it happen at high throttle? A black box is always helpful in situations like this, of course. Adit Kushari says, do you have any tips to make a quad more long-lasting or durable? Well, Adit, my philosophy is that everything's going to break. You just have to decide where it's going to break. So as I'm designing a quad, as I'm building a quad, rather, I'm always trying to think about how things are going to go wrong. With a frame, you want to pick a durable frame. Obviously, some frames are going to be more durable than others, but that's just a question of buying the right frame. At that point, then, if you showed me one of your builds, I could point to things about it that I thought were going to be a problem. It's tough to boil it down to tips because it's all little things that I do that I've learned to do over time, but now they're just what I do. So without seeing how you did it differently, it's hard to point out what I would suggest you do differently. I think if you look at any one of my build videos, though, you can see the things I do and the decisions I make about how to build the quad and the reasons why I do it. So that's what I would say. Jersey Boy says it's while you're flying straight. You got video of it, Jersey Boy? Show me if you got high def video with sound. That would be ideal. LeavyFPV wants to tackle a thing I noticed about latency. Analog has maybe 14 milliseconds of latency. DJI has 21 milliseconds, but usually stays around 25, 26. What's your take on that? Well, I would say be careful about that. And when we talk about analog latency, we have to make sure we're talking apples to apples, and that is so-called glass-to-glass latency. Sometimes when people talk about the latency of an analog camera, they mean from the lens to the video output, right? And that's not glass-to-glass latency. That's not latency from the camera lens to the video output of the camera to the VTX through the air to the goggle, okay? When you say that analog cameras have 14 millisecond latency, I think that a lot of analog systems have more than 14 milliseconds latency and even more than the DJI 25 millisecond latency. Am I wrong about that? That's glass to glass because RC Shim tested DJI latency and he said that the DJI number was pretty accurate compared to his tests. And I know he's doing glass to glass testing. That's the only way you could test because you can't get a direct camera output of a DJI. Whereas if you look at like Oscar Leong's testing of his camera latency, I believe Oscar Leong is not testing through a VTX. I believe that Oscar is testing just... We should just check that before I get that wrong. Let's double check that. So here's Oscar Leong's FPV camera latency testing. How does he do it? Yeah, so he says right here, other parts of an FPV system might also introduce latency, for example, VTX, VRX, etc. So in other words, when Oscar Leong says that a RunCam Micro Swift has 19 milliseconds of latency minimum, 28 milliseconds on average, that is only the camera. There's additional latency in the VTX and the display. Whereas the DJI latency is includes all of that. So I actually don't think DJI has more latency than many analog systems. And in fact, even if we look just at the camera, some cameras have very, very low latency, 8 milliseconds, 10 milliseconds, etc. But many cameras are the same. Runcam Eagle, 27 milliseconds. Okay, that one's a little high. Caddx SDR1. So I don't think it's a given that the DJI system has that much worse latency than a real analog system. But if it does, well, I think what we could see with latency is that when there is low enough latency, then everybody's happy. And when latency exceeds a certain threshold, then everybody gets sad. I think it's more important that latency be consistent. Do sims simulate latency? No. I would love to see a simulator where you could turn the latency up or down on a dial. You would need to characterize the latency of your joystick, though, and I think that's harder to do. Big Easy wants to know in the Discord. Thank you for being a patron, Big Easy. If you want to become a patron and join my Discord server where I can just mostly ignore you all live stream. But other patrons will help you out. You can join my Patreon, link in the video description. Can I run the CR pin header on a Hobbywing 60 amp to the RX4 pin on a Strix F10? You cannot. Big Easy, CR stands for current. It means analog current output. And that is used for the ESC to communicate how many amps it's pulling to the flight controller. There's two ways of doing that. One is with analog current sense, where there's basically a voltage from 0 to 3.3 volts. And the level of voltage is proportional to the amount of current. One is with ESC telemetry, where it just digitally tells it with a digital protocol. The RX4 pin on the Strix F10 is for ESC telemetry. Now, hang on. Let me double check one thing, because some flight controllers use the same pin for analog and ESC telemetry, and they'll be like a solder bridge or something. I'm not sure whether the Strix F10 is one of those. Like my JBF4, the input pin on the flight controller can do both, and you use a solder bridge to pick. This is a terrible photo. No, it's got, oh, for real? Why would you give me a photo where I can't actually see the dang pinout? Oh, thank you, Oscar Leon. Where's the pinout? Show me the pinout. VBAT RX4 ground. So I see that there is no separate RX4 and current pin in the plug. So then the question is there a solder bridge somewhere? Now here's current input here. Okay. So this plug seems to only have RX4. If you want to do current input, this is where it needs to go. Why they didn't put that in the pin header, I don't know. But this is where you need to put it, current, right here. That's the answer. Sky in the Discord asks, my quad keeps falling out of the sky for no apparent reason at less than 100 feet. I've swapped receivers. What could be wrong? Sky, so if you have video when it happens, you should be able to see in the OSD what error message appears. My guess it's going to be RX loss, your fail-safing. But I would want to know what was happening. Go in the OSD tab, Sky, and turn on the warnings OSD element if it's not already on. Betaflight 4.1 and I think 4.0, it's on by default. And then when it falls out of the air, you'll see a message in your OSD. It'll probably be RX loss, but maybe it's something else. If we assume that it's fail-safe and you've swapped receivers, it still could be the wiring. It still could be the 5-volt regulator. It could be the flight controller's messed up. It could be your transmitter is messed up. These are all possibilities. And the only way to really nail it down is through just trial and error. If you suspect that it's a flight controller, try the same receiver on a different flight controller. If you suspect that it's a transmitter, try a different transmitter. Mr. Huggy makes an interesting point in the Discord. 20 milliseconds latency may seem long, but from your eyes seeing something, your brain processing it, and your hands moving the stick is about 120 milliseconds latency. Mr. Huggy, there is a really important difference between response time and latency. So you're right that from a visual stimulus, if you say, click your mouse as soon as you see the light turn green, that's, for me, that's going to be close to 250 milliseconds because I'm old and have slow response time. But even for like a pro gamer, they may have really fast reflexes. They may be 120 milliseconds. They're not going to be much faster than that. That's just how long it takes a human brain to perceive a stimulus and move a muscle in response to it. But that does not mean that you cannot feel the difference between 20 or 40 or 50 milliseconds of latency in a real-time situation. So the difference is that when you are flying, you are not seeing a stimulus and responding to it. It's not just press a button when the light turns green. You are performing a continuous function. Sorry, bumping the mic. Seeing the landscape come towards you and moving through it in a continuous manner. And the difference between 50 milliseconds latency and 20 milliseconds latency, I guarantee you can notice that. It's a difference of how connected you can feel and how instantaneously you can respond. I promise you. People say, typical human response time is 250 milliseconds, so who cares if DJI is 25 milliseconds versus something's 16 milliseconds versus 35 milliseconds versus 50. Anything under 250 milliseconds doesn't matter. That is 1,000% not true. If you try, and this is why I wish there was a simulator where you could arbitrarily add latency. You could not fly a quad at 250 milliseconds latency. You couldn't do it. You can fly at about 100 milliseconds or less. There is a very noticeable difference between 100 and 50. Somewhere below about 50, I can't really notice a difference, but other people can. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, DJ Pop points out, Linus Tech Tips did a video where they tested refresh rate, 120 hertz, 244 hertz refresh rate. And they hired Shroud to come work on the video with them. Shroud, the pro gamer, has like 190 millisecond response time. So that's just as good as it gets. Roll on B wants to know what the focal distance of like Fat Shark goggles is. I think it's around 6 feet, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Ethan Mitchell, does anybody know if the DJI Air unit has the processing power to handle a 4K camera in the future? Ethan, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that DJI planned for 4K, but the challenge is going to be getting 4K is a lot more data than 720. It's a lot more. It's like exponentially, multiplicative. It's not just additively more because it gets bigger on the horizontal and the vertical axis. Fitting a 4K into a wireless transmission is going to take more than 24 megabits per second. That's a really good analogy. Livu says, set up a microphone with variable delay, speak into it, and use headphones to listen to you with delay. If you feed an echo of your own voice back into your ear at 100 milliseconds, you will definitely notice the difference. C-Pulse has a 600-gram quad. Which battery to use for 8-minute flight time? What are you doing while you're flying, C-Pulse? If all you want to do is hover for 8 minutes, you could do that on an 1800 milliamp hour 4S. If you actually want to, rip it up, that's tougher. 8 minutes is a long time to be in the air for a 600-gram 5-inch quad. Michael Simon, thank you for a $20 super chat. Thank you very much, Michael Simon. Been in the hobby 2 years now. Almost everything I learned has been from your videos. Thanks for all you do. No question. Just thank you for $20, Michael Simon. Scott Steely, thank you for a $5 super chat. Can a flight controller be too old for Betaflight 4.0? Because I upgraded an IRC Synergy F3. Yeah, no. You cannot. Whatever you did, Scott, you didn't flash the right version of Betaflight 4.0 to the F. Oh, wait, hang on. Betaflight 4.0 or 4.1? Betaflight 4.1 doesn't support F3 boards anymore. I think 4.0 did. You should be able to flash 4.0 to it. Right, guys? Am I wrong about that? Mark Emerson is trying to solder the signal wire from a DSMX receiver on a Maytech F405. Let's look up the Maytech F405. And let's figure out where to put a DSMX receiver. Maytech F405. Which one? Which one? There's a bunch of them. Is it the Maytech F405? Subay Haitham. Yes, you can connect a Crossfire receiver to any UART on an F4 flight controller, just as long as it's not, you know, like the S-Bus pad you can't use, but any regular TX or RX. Maytech F405. So Maytech has a ton of different flight controllers, Mark Emerson, but I mean, for Spectrum, you would just use any RX pad. So like in this one, you would just use RX1. That would be fine. You could use RX3, RX4, any RX pad that you're not using the UART for something else. It seems like, so look, if we look over here, here is the S-Bus input and RX2 is right above it. And there is no TX2 anywhere else. So I'm going to guess that UART2 is intended for the receiver. So you would use this RX2 pad right here. And this 3v3 pad right there probably. Mark Emerson, that's probably what you would do. Niche FPV wants to know, with RPM filtering, is PID tuning less important? Niche, PID tuning is been getting less and less important as the PID controller has gotten better and better. RPM filtering gives you more flexibility to tune the PIDs how you want to, but I don't think RPM filtering is necessarily the driver for PIDs being less important. Let's see here. We're caught up on the super chats. Let's let 01. Thanks for $2. Roland B. Thanks for $2 in the super chat. Blitz FPVs. We're still talking about the Skyzone Sky 030 versus the DX6i. I mean, Blitz FPV. It sounds like you are leaning towards the newer DX6. Or getting a new transmitter. I mean, you asked my opinion. It's so funny to me when people are like, hey, what should I get, this or that? And I'm like, answer them, and they're like, yeah, but I really want to get this other thing. I'm like, okay, well, it's your money. Do what you want. If you don't like your DX6i and you like your EV800s, get the new radio. That's fine. I don't care. Chet W. Did I miss your super chat, man? I'm so sorry about that. Chet W. Oh, there you go. I'm sorry, Chet W. My mistake. Chet W., thank you for $2 in the super chat. Are you going to test out the new Skydio 2? I doubt it. I don't have a lot of experience in camera drones. The Skydio 2 is a new camera drone that supposedly gives DJI a hell of a run for its money. The problem is, like right now, I've got the DJI Mavic Mini for review, and I'm also trying to learn about 3D printing and make videos about that, and I can only stretch myself so much, and I just don't know if trying to start reviewing a whole bunch of new things that I've don't know a lot about is the right thing to do. It looks really interesting, doesn't it? I've heard people say that Skydio is one of the first camera drone companies to really give DJI a run for its money, and it's based in the U.S. if my memory is correct. So for people who don't want to, or maybe aren't allowed to because of who they work for, buy a drone from China, it is exciting. My fear would be that I would get it and I would make kind of it's going to be 5 times as much work to make a review because it's not a topic I already know about. And then my fear would be that I would like make a bad review that does incorrect information in it. And it's really challenging to not do that so I'm going to try to do a good review of the Mavic Mini, and we'll see where we go from there. Ethan Mitchell says it's interesting to see what the FAA says about the Skydio 2. Technically, you're not in full control of what the drone does. Yeah, Ethan Mitchell, the FAA expects the piloted command to remain in control of the drone. Now, that doesn't mean that you are in control at all times. You can put it on an autonomous waypoint mission, but you have to be watching it with your unaided eye, and you have to be able to take control at any time. So if you put the Skydio in follow me mode and then you started riding your mountain bike, the FAA would not be happy with that. The FAA would expect that there would be another pilot following you in a car or something and ready to take over. Blitz FPV, is it possible to put the R9 gimbals in the DX6i? I doubt, I mean, I don't know. Surely there. Can you put R9 gimbals in a DX6i? Let's see if anyone else has asked this question before. It looks like you can. Well, it looks like somebody did. R9 gimbals, or M9 gimbals, not R9. Can you do it? I don't know, man. I don't know. Check this out. Boom. Yeah. There we go. The Great Golden Spoon says the quadcopter flips out mid-roll if the throttle hits 0, and air mode is on. Just replace the motors to test that too. The Great Golden Spoon, does it like death roll? Does it just go into the ground? That does suggest that a motor is stopping. If you replace the motors, it could be the ESC. I would replace the ESC next. C-Pulse wants to know why no one uses prop guards for racing. Yeah, Ciati, welcome to the... Say, Ciati's here. They would just explode. They would break. And they would slow you down. Josh Ford wants to know how to display flight time in your FPV goggles. Josh Ford, you can do that in the Betaflight OSD. There is a answer. There's a OSD element with flight time. That's how I would do it. Stu Pedasso wants to know if you use Crossfire with the Spectrum IX12, do you get the low latency? Yes, it's a proper digital connection, not a crappy PPM connection. So yeah, it's full performance. Jersey Boy, no problem. Jersey Boy says he had the wobbles on roll after upgrading to Betaflight 4.1, but now he thinks he may have a bent motor shaft. Yes, that would definitely cause the problem. You ever have this experience? I was having a problem with one of my 3D prints I was trying to get the first line, the first layer height correct, and was having problems. And I said to the guy I was helping, I did crash the nozzle into the bed and scrape it a little bit. Maybe that's the problem. And it's funny because you're like, I'm having this tuning problem. What should I do? And then later you're like, oh, I had a bent motor the whole time. Like, yeah, always go back to basics. So, yeah. Can you use VBAT from an ESC to a current input on the flight controller to get battery voltage? Chamber. No, you cannot, Chamber. The current input on a flight controller goes to the ADC input. VBAT sense would go to a voltage divider. Chamber, the current input pin on a flight controller maxes at 3.3 volts. If you feed it VBAT, it will die. You'll fry the flight controller. So don't do that. Yeah, Blake Nation, BL Touch. I've figured out how to get the first layer right and how to get the level right, but I hear that BL Touch is a big deal because normally you move the nozzle all over the bed and you take little measurements with a feeler gauge and eventually you get it dialed in. But if you then say, well, I want to lower the nozzle like 0.1 millimeter, now you just got to go through it all again. Whereas with BL Touch, you could just say in your slicer, just lower it with 0.1 millimeter. It is 10 minutes till the end of the stream. We're going to keep going for the next 10 minutes. Ciati FPV is in the stream. He is going to be live streaming at 3 p.m. When my stream finishes up. Ciati, what are you doing today? What are you doing today, my friend? Post it in the chat. Ciati lives in Atlanta. I'm actually going to be, Ciati, you don't know this. I'm going to be in Atlanta starting on the 17th. Is that right? That's like 2 days from now. Oh my gosh. I got to get my shit together. Woof. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to be in Atlanta on the 17th, Ciati. I hope we find some time to hang out. Appy FPV, you're not a pest. If I missed your super chat, I apologize about that. How did I miss it? Oh, I apparently just missed a couple super chats in there. Appy FPV, sorry about that. £5 to Appy from Appy FPV. I'm going to build a new quad and I'm ready for a new transmitter. What frame, parts, and transmitter would you recommend? Appy FPV, I appreciate the £5 quid, I'm told. All the recommended parts for a first build, you can check out my Ultimate FPV shopping list and spend all the time you want digging through like flight controllers, etc. I also have a Learn to Build series. Now this is pretty dated. I'm working on updating this. Hopefully have something out soon. But I got to tell you, except for the motors, which this company went out of business, but you can still actually buy the motors. You might pick different motors, but most of the parts on my Learn to Build series, I actually would still recommend even to this day. And this is a full build of your first quad from start to finish, every single step, all along the way. So I would suggest you check out the Ultimate FPV shopping list for things like controllers and receivers, and for parts like motors and stuff, check out that build series, Appy. UAV Tech, yes. So UAV Tech is asking about, so I'm doing something for my patrons after the live stream at 3:30. I'm going to be doing a thing called Office Hours, where I'm going to do one-on-one chat with my patrons. Yes, that's still happening, Mark. You're welcome to show up. Of course, you're always welcome. Ciati FPV will be doing 3-inch prop talk, pilot spotlight, and tearing apart his Acrobat. Cool. Matt DeWurst, why are your 3.3 volt regulators blowing? That is a good question, Matt. And I don't know the answer, my friend. Are you running something off of the 3.3 volt that's pulling too much current? Yeah. Just Don, I have not announced the December drawing for my patron giveaway yet. I will do that soon, but I haven't announced it yet. Dan Z, I did not get my T16 grips yet. You guys, the people, my patrons over in the Discord are seeing who can screen grab the first time I mention my website. Just their reaction time. It's cute, guys. Have I seen the Ronin FPV frames? Well, I tried to earlier in the chat, in the stream, but I couldn't. I tried to Google them and I couldn't find them. So I tried to see them, but I didn't. Have I missed anybody else's super chats? Or am I fully caught up? Blitz FPV asks, is the Toolkit RC M6 any good, or is there a better charger for the price? Blitz FPV, on paper, let's put this up. Toolkit RC M6. On paper, the Toolkit RC M6 looks amazing, but here's why I have not promoted it at all. I thought about putting it on my website just the other day as I was going through updating my website, but I decided not to because the Toolkit RC M8 has been... Is the Toolkit RC M8 still up? Did I leave it up? I think I left it on. Yeah, so the M8 is still there. The thing is, the M8 has had, like, lots of people are happy with it, but it has just too high of a defect rate. People having it overcharging their batteries, having the calibration be wrong and not be able to calibrate it right. And I haven't had any of these problems, but I have too many people pointing out they've had these problems, and I just don't feel as confident about it as I feel like I need to. It's still on the list because a lot of people are okay with it. And it is a lot of performance for the price. For 40 freaking bucks, you get a lot. But I just feel like I just don't feel great about these based on the feedback I've got from them. So the Toolkit RC M6, it's 30 bucks, 150 watts, 10 amps. I just like, oh yeah, you should spend, I would say that if you have the option, you should spend 60 bucks on the ISDT 608AC instead. That's what I would say. Or the ISDT Q6. The ISDT Q6 is also very good for. Where's the ISDT? Did I take the ISDT Q6 off of here? No, it's in this section. The ISDT Q6 is also quite good. That's the direction I would go. Mr. Propeller, what can I do if I land and at 0 my throttle it starts bouncing up and down? Disarm. That's not a joke. These are not camera drones. They're not intended to land and just sit there. They're intended to fly and be awesome. When you touch down, disarm, you won't have that problem. There's no landing a mini quad. There's just like slowly crashing it. Jason Peters, what happened to the CL1 budget kit from Roto Riot? Roto Riot stopped stocking the budget kit, and they're unable to keep stocking it for whatever reason. You just have to buy those parts separately. Is it the Rodin frame? Not the Ronin? Let's see if I can find it. Nope. Nope. Rodin? Nope. Nope. Sorry. Give me a freaking... Yeah. Anyway. Mr. Steele doesn't use air mode. Mr. Steele also doesn't use Betaflight. KISS is different. Air mode in KISS is not the same as in Betaflight. So if you're trying to do perches, okay, so that's the thing. If you're trying to do perches, that's different than landing. Okay, so what you need to do if you're trying to do perches is have air mode on a switch and turn air mode off, and then you'll be able to perch and disarm. Yeah, put air mode in the... so disable the air mode feature in the configuration tab. And then in the modes tab, put air mode on an aux switch. And then when you're going to do a slide or a perch, disable it and you won't hop. You could also disable it before landing, but yeah. Nemo LTU, thank you for 100 Norwegian kroner. Please give me advice on what to buy. Looking for a really good ready-to-fly FPV drone set for cinematic videos with the DJI system. Ooh, cinematic. I mean, if you're starting out, I would just suggest you go with a 5-inch. And for cinematic, so I have DJI. What have I got? I mean, the thing is, you're going to be like, well, should I get a 7-inch? Should I get a 6-inch? The thing is that if you're just starting out, your first one should probably not be, you're going to be just learning to fly and stuff. There are lots and lots of ready-to-flies with the DJI system in it. Here are some that I recommend on my website, including the Roto Riot HD1, the Lumineer QAV-R. For cinematic, you probably shouldn't get the Banggood. What's a 7-inch? Let's see if we can find a 7-inch RTF with DJI. That's going to be tough to search for. Can you get the QAV-R in 7-inch? I think you can. So for cinematic, you probably would want a bigger 6-inch or 7-inch. Do you have the option here? Doesn't seem like you do. Guys in the chat, well, the stream's about to end. I gotta get out of here and let Ciati get up in the air. The iFlight DC5 is good. Yeah. Where's it? Is it iFlight? Oh, I have the DC3 on my list. The iSight. Yeah, but is there like a 7-inch cinematic? The DC5 is, yeah. That's just the frame. What about a ready to fly though? I think you want to get fly for $5. Rodin frame, gravity loss frames. Oh my god, we're finally going to find it. Nope. Why the hell can't I find this stupid frame? Oh, here we go. Gravity loss FPV. I don't know what you're doing with your SEO, but your SEO is terrible. Terrible. Why is it not possible to find your silly frame? You know why? Because Rodin is a freaking painter from freaking wherever, you know, the Renaissance or whatever. And you have the same name as him, and he's going to win when it comes to SEO. Hallelujah. We're finally finding this frame, though. Oh, yeah. Okay. We've got some aluminum parts. Nice. All right, guys. I gotta finish up here. iFlight Bumblebee. That's a 3-inch. Yeah. So Nemo, if you want, let me get to. If you want cinematic like a 3-inch, Cinewhoop, then there are any number of great choices. The iFlight Cinebee, the Shendrone Squirt. Roto Riot sells a pre-built Shendrone Squirt. My guess is that you're thinking more like a 6-inch or 7-inch, but honestly, I would say that cinematic is more in your fingers than in the quad you buy, and just get a decent 5-inch ready to fly. And there are a ton of them. iFlight DC5 is a good one. iFlight makes good gear at a good price, and it comes with the, yeah, so I'm going to say the iFlight DC5. Done. All right, guys, I got to wrap up. Thank you guys for sticking with me. I will be back tomorrow, Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's when I live stream, Mondays and Sundays at 1, Mondays at 8. Ciati is going to come on as soon as I stop yapping. Ciati, post your link in the chat, please. And he's going to stream for a while. And patrons who are coming to the office hours, I will see you in just about a half hour. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Happy flying, everybody.